Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 106. I'm Laura, also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. And we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Welcome! Did you notice anything different at the beginning? That is what I have been working on for the last several weeks and have sort of been keeping under wraps until I was ready to release. And technically, I'm still not 100% ready, but I decided I just didn't want to keep it a secret anymore. I have had a wonderful friend of mine in my knit group, actually two, really, who have been helping me develop a logo. And I am excited to announce that everything is pretty much going to fall under the Corner of Knit and Tea now. My name on Ravelry and name on Instagram and Twitter will not change. But the Etsy shop will be changing over very shortly. At this point, I am just waiting for a few new tags for my yarn to come in, and then I will officially change the Etsy shop over to the Corner of Knit and Tea as well. Now, all links should still work because I am going to change it on Etsy. I'm not going to start a new shop. So you should still be able to find me at your old links, and I will also update all the links in the show notes and pretty much everywhere else. But that is the exciting news. I just decided, normally I don't discuss business on the podcast, but I'm going to take just a couple minutes to discuss it today, just because it is important, and I also wanted to share with you what all I am doing. I decided that I had a few too many IDs all over the internet. I have the Corner of Knit and Tea, I had the Stash Buckler, Adventures in Yarn, I have Fluffy K, I have so many different things all over the internet, and I decided that I wanted to consolidate a little bit. And I have really liked the Corner of Knit and Tea, and it has taken off in the podcast, and I just feel like that was a good name to get behind. And as I have mentioned in the several episodes ago, I have started doing technical editing of knitting patterns, and so I decided that I was going to turn the Corner of Knit and Tea into a business, and that I wanted to bring everything under that. So you will notice in the next few weeks a few more things coming up where things will be kind of folding in under the Corner of Knit and Tea. But like I said, my social media links will for the most part remain the same, and everything that I am doing will be available via thecornerofknitandtea.com. So if you ever have questions about that or are concerned about where to find me, that is the place to find me. I do post the podcast and all the show notes there. So it will continue to be on YouTube, but I just wanted you to know that everything is sort of all going to fall under the Corner of Knit and Tea, and I have some wonderful logos. There are a bunch of different colorways, and you'll see that I have assigned certain color logos to certain items. So this one will be for the podcast, and I'm super excited about that. So like I said, there'll be a few more announcements in coming weeks, but that is sort of the big news that I have been sitting on. And those yarns that I was spinning that weren't for sale, those are going to my friends who helped with the logos. So that is the news over at the Corner of Knit and Tea. So welcome to episode 106. It is Sunday, October 2nd. Rhinebeck draws ever closer. It is Socktober and fall, and Spinzilla starts tomorrow. So we are chock full of crafty news. Let's jump right into the podcast. Today I am drinking lychee from the Mighty Leaf. I ordered this a while ago. It is kind of a tropical flavored black tea, and I am enjoying it in my mug from West Virginia. This is from the Tamarack, West Virginia Arts Collective, and I really loved all their pottery. And so it's not a completely fall tea, although it is in the 60s out and lovely today. It is just nice and cool and wonderful. And so I am enjoying a warm cup of tea. And that is black with just a hint of tropical. It's a little bit sour, and then I also put some sweetener in there, so it's a little bit sour and a little bit sweet. And I don't actually want to say that I'm dreaming of tropical getaways or summer knits, because I am pleased as punch that it is fall. So let's cover the knits. Pretty simple this week. I have one finished knit. This is the Pearl Soho garter stitch ear flap hat in a bright pink. This is Knit Picks Swish Worsted. It's 100% superwash merino, and it's in the brights colorways, and this is in the colorway Pucker. And the pink is, it's basically a neon pink. It is for my girl, I will be giving these to her probably at Thanksgiving when I see her, but it is one of her hats for the coming year, coming winter, and I am going to make some mittens to go with. I bought enough yarn to do that, and it is super bright. I thought about adding another color to tone it down, but I didn't have anything that I really wanted to use, so this one's just going to be super pink for her, and I hope that she loves it. I also realized that I forgot to turn on, usually I have some like work lights that I turn on for extra light in the room, and so the light is a little off, but I am sitting in a north facing room, and you're getting like natural daylight in here, so I'm interested to see what it does to the colors on the podcast, because sometimes I think the other light, which is a little bit yellow, distorts the colors. So we're just gonna go with it, because that's kind of what I'm doing, going with the flow. Yes, so this is a very small finished object for my girl. It needs a quick block and needs a set of mittens to go with it, but it is done. And actually I knit one of these for her brother out of leftover yarn from his blanket, so they'll kind of have matching hats, but not really, because they'll be in completely different colors. So yeah, that's my one finished object. My almost finished is my Rhinebeck cardigan, and I am super thrilled. I got through almost everything that I wanted to this week. Last week I had just joined at the shoulders, and I told you that I had a lot of finishing work to do. I had the collar, I had the sleeve edgings, and I had the button bands. And then because it's a tunic, it's kind of a hiker's waistcoat, it has a belt and belt loops. I am done with everything except the belt and belt loops. So it is pretty much finished. I have the nice ribbed shawl collar. I have both button bands done. And I have the shoulder, or the sleeve edgings done, the cuffs there. It is, as you can tell, unblocked. It needs a good blocking. And then I will sew the buttons on. I forgot to bring them in, but I have little leather buttons, kind of like, they remind me of what you would see on like an old grandpa cardigan. And so I want to wash it before I put the buttons on, because they're leather, so I don't want to get them wet. And I am waiting to put the belt loops on until after I wash and block, so that I can measure appropriately and really put it where my waist is, because there are several inches in the middle that are knit straight that don't have shaping in them, and I wanted to be sure that I get it really where I want to wear the belt. So all the knitting on the physical sweater itself is done, and I am now working on the belt, which is knit separately, and I have about 3 feet of the belt, and it needs to be close to 5 feet, so I am working on that. I hope to finish that today, and then I just need to give everything a good blocking, and then I'll need to do the belt loops and sewing on the buttons. So I am almost done. So close I can almost taste it. I think I used between 6 and 7 skeins of yarn. I will need to sort of weigh my leftovers, because I have a little bit of this ball and a little bit of this ball, and you know, but I will need to weigh my leftovers so I can tell you exactly what yardage, but I am guessing, let's see, 220 times 6 is 12, 13, 20. So I'm guessing I have about 1,400 yards in this sweater. So that is a nice amount of yardage to get out of my stash. I do have some skeins left over. I haven't decided if I'm going to keep them and use them for charity knitting, or if I'm going to go ahead and put them up to sell on Ravelry. I overbought because I thought I was going to be doing a slightly bigger sweater. Anyway, so that is my sweater, almost finished. I hope to block and put buttons on this week. I will probably take a couple pictures on my mannequin, But then I probably won't bother taking pictures on me until we actually go to Rhinebeck, because I'm going to take the good camera and we're going to take lovely photos there. So for now, this is kind of all you're going to get. But this is my Rhinebeck sweater, and I don't think I said what pattern it is, and usually I do. It is Ardara by Carol Feller. And it is in, I believe, her Celtic Cables book, and this is in Cascade 220 in the Irlande colorway, and I knit this basically this month, so that was super exciting. I mean, I missed it by a couple days because it is October 2nd, and I was just finishing the last button pin this morning, but I'm super excited. All the ends are woven in too, so other than the belt and the belt loops and the buttons, this one is almost done. So that's my knitting. I didn't touch any of the socks that I talked about last week, although that is what I'm going to take to work with me at lunchtimes this week as soon as I finish the belt. So I hope to have at least one finished sock next week, if not a whole pair, because I want to work on those. But my knitting time is actually going to be down a little bit because it is time for Spinzilla. So let's take a quick sip of tea and then move on to spinning. Let me talk about this week's spins first, and then we'll talk about Spinzilla because I brought everything I'm going to spin. The first thing I wanted to show you was a braid that I was in the middle of spinning last week. I brought you a little bit of the fiber. It is Fat Cat Knits. It was a panda braid, which is superwash merino, bamboo, and trilobal nylon. And it was in the Rapture colorway, which was pinks and reds and purples and browns. And it is finished. It is a super pink skein. It has everything from pale, almost cotton candy pink, to like a cherry, to a raspberry, to just a few sections that almost look like a dark purple or dark chocolate. It is 399 yards of a fingering weight. The panda blend with the bamboo and the trilobal nylon is wonderful for socks. Because it is, the superwash merino is soft and squishy, and the bamboo and trilobal nylon add strength and shine. And like I said, the trilobal nylon is just the wee little bit sparkly. I don't think you'll be able to tell in this. It's really hard to photograph, but it is just the slightest bit sparkly in the light. It's just got a hint. Anyway, this skein is up in the shop as of this morning. It is available for purchase, and I'm just super happy with it. It would also make a lovely shawl. It's just that panda is the perfect blend for socks. So that is Rapture, done and in the books. Next up, I showed you a braid from Spunky Eclectic, and it was a fall braid. It was a limited edition called Peepers on Targhee, and I talked about how it was all the fall colors, and I spun it up this week. It looks like there's not very much on the bobbin because these are my mini spinner bobbins, so they are the full 8 ounces, so that is about 4 ounces of fiber, and it makes me think of fall colorways and flannel shirts. It has got some kind of charcoal grayish black, some blue, some forest green, some burgundy, and they're all kind of muted soft tones, and it is definitely fall colorways. And like I said, it makes me think of a flannel shirt or a tartan or something very fallish. So I am going to ply this up this evening. I have no idea on the yardage. Like I said, this is Targhee, so it should poof up because Targhee is poofy and soft and squishy. And I don't know, this would probably make great socks, although it's not superwash, so they'd have to be hand washed. But we're gonna see what I get from this, and this one is also going into the shop. So if these colors do it for you, keep an eye out, probably just a couple days, and I will be popping this one in the shop. So that is, I need to get this off the bobbins tonight because I need to get started for Spinzilla. I have talked about Spinzilla before, but I will do a brief recap. It is an event put on by the National Needle Arts Association yearly. It is 1 week in October to spin as much as you can. You can participate on teams or as a rogue spinner by yourself. It costs $10 to participate, and it is basically a donation to support community-related fiber arts initiatives. And this year I am spinning on Team Louette. That is the same team that I spun on last year. And last year we were the champions. Now I will say that I don't feel like I had a lot to do with the championship last year. So the way you count, so the way you compete is you compete based on yardage. For how much yardage you have spun. And Spinzilla counts the singles yardage and the plied yardage. So basically, for instance, I pretty much always do 2 plies. So I get the singles yardage and then the finished yardage. So if I have 200 yards of finished yarn in a 2 ply, I actually get 600 yards for it because it counts the 400 yards singles and the 200 yards finished. So it's a little bit complicated, and it does sort of, basically I take everything that I spin and multiply, every finished yarn that I spin and multiply it by 3, because that's how I end up where I am. Or that's how I end up with my total Spinzilla yardage. Last year I contributed I spun a little over 12 ounces in a week. Now remember, usually I spin a 4-ounce braid in a week, so 12 ounces in a week is not bad for me. That's the equivalent of 3 braids. And I spun a little over 3,000 yards. A couple of the people on our team won the highest individual yardage spinning with 20 or 30,000 yards. So I don't feel that I added a ton to our team, but under the adage, every little bit counts, I am spinning for Team Louette again this year, and I'm super excited and have ambitious goals. I know I'm not going to finish what I have set out for myself, but I thought I would, because I will tell you right now, I have approximately 1 pound 12 ounces put aside, plus a couple other braids I could throw in there, and more than doubling my yardage from last year, I suspect is not really going to happen, but I am going to give it the good old college try. So let's talk about what I'm going to spin this week. Like I said, I'm going to apply this one, get it off the bobbins, get the bobbins clear and ready to go. So the first spin that I want to talk about is a spin that I am very excited about. I have hinted at this over the last few weeks. I'm sorry for the crinkling. Let's just get this out of the way now. I talked about the fact that I found a shawl that I really, really wanted to knit. And I printed out the pattern, the designer, and I have been chatting about it, and I'm actually maybe doing a sort of informal knit along with Amanda, so Knitpicky, or Wit, she has the Not a Podcast. And the shawl is Sowerby, and it is by Annika Baranti. And it is a garter stitch shawl. And you know me, I absolutely love garter stitch, and this calls for worsted weight yarn, and it calls for 800 to 1100 yards, and it is sort of a crescent shaped shawl that is worked in garter stitch with some short rows. And I saw it and I was like, oh, I really want that. The designer actually posted a photo. She was wearing her sample, and said, fall is here, in my wonderful garter stitch, shawl. And I was like, oh my God, I have to have one of those. I have to have one of those. And I immediately looked at it and looked at the yardage and was like, oh, I could buy 2 skeins of Miss Babs Yowza and be done with it. And I went to go over to look at Miss Babs' site. And then I was like, I'm getting ready to go to Rhinebeck, and I have no business buying yarn right before I go to Rhinebeck. So do I have anything in the stash that would work? And I don't have anything in the stash. Anything that has that much yardage in worsted weight I have used up in sweaters, so I don't have any ready-made yarn. So then I started thinking about what I could spin. And I remembered that I had 2 braids in from Southern Cross Fiber. It was from his fall 2014 collection, and I had ordered them on South African Superfine Merino, which I have been talking about is one of my favorite braids, in a dark burgundy in the color Wine Tasting. And that's actually a pretty good representation of the colorway. And so I have 2 bumps of this, which is 8 ounces. And I was like, this would be the perfect color for that, because I wanted a dark kind of semi-solid for the garter stitch. I thought that if I did variegated, it would just get lost kind of in the pattern. And I think actually variegated would totally work for this shawl pattern because of the fact that it is garter stitch and that there is not a lot of patterning in it. It's some short rows, but otherwise it's a pretty simple knit. But I decided that I just wanted to do it in like a semi-solid colorway. So I had 2 bumps of this, which is 8 ounces, but it calls for 800 to 1100 yards of worsted weight, and 8 ounces is not going to get me that. I might get close to 800 yards in a sport weight, which I'm not necessarily opposed to knitting it in, but my concern was that with 8 ounces of fiber, I would be a little short. So then I started thinking about what else I had, and I have some other South African superfine in a different colorway. So then I started thinking, well, maybe I could pinstripe it, or, I was just having all these different thoughts, and none of them were really, really appealing to me. And so I went to go pull this fiber out of the stash. And while I was pulling this fiber out of the stash, I found out that I had 2 bags of South African superfine and silk from either November, I think it was either October or November of 2015 in the colorway Protea. They are very, very close. Now you can see this one is just slightly redder, and it's a little bit shinier, which is because it has silk in it, but they both have the same base fiber, the South African superfine. So now I have 2 of these and 2 of these, which means I have a pound, which means I have enough to do my project. So my plan with these, and I took a photo of them all intertwined with each other, my plan is to spin this is singles and this is singles, and ply this together. So I have a pound of this fiber, and I'm planning to get at least the 8 ounces done. I have to go digging to find the other 2 braids and pull those out. And so my plan is that I am going to have a heap of yarn in this beautiful colorway to knit my Sowerby shawl. So I am so excited about that. As you know, I am a burgundy girl. It's why I bought it twice. And I have been so excited about the spin, and I cannot wait to start. This is definitely going to be the first thing on my wheel tomorrow. Technically, Spinzilla starts at 12:01 in the morning on October 3rd, which means I could stay up late tonight, but I doubt I'm going to. But I basically plan to stay up late every night this week and spin. So when I come home tomorrow night, this is going to be the first thing on my wheel. I'm thrilled. So that is a pound of fiber to be spun. Like I said, I know I'm going to spin the first 8 ounces. I haven't decided whether I'll make it through the whole second 8 ounces during Spinzilla, but I am going to try. The second spin that I have picked out for Spinzilla is to work on my hap shawl. I showed you all the little bits and pieces that I spun for the hap shawl for the trim edges when I did the Tour de Fleece. So I also have the smoke. This is Corriedale Cross Fat Cat Knits smoke, and I have 12 ounces of this colorway to be spun. I actually did spin the first bobbin of this a while ago, and I won't count this yardage in on Spinzilla. So if I ply, I will count the plied yardage, but I won't count the singles yardage for this bobbin because this was done before. So my other plan is to try and get the 12 ounces of this spun up and get this all plied up so that I will be ready to knit my hap shawl. I still actually have one more coordinate to spin for it, but having the whole body and all but one of the coordinates done means that I could start, because the hap shawl starts as a center square and then the trim goes around the outside. So it'll take me a while to knit the center square, since that's 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards, and then I can move on to, so I'll have plenty of time to spin the final coordinate. So this is the other 12 ounces. So that is a pound and 12 ounces. And then I have one more braid that I need to do as a custom spin. That will probably be the first thing on the wheel next week. After, well, I don't know, because I don't think I'll be able to get it done before Rhinebeck, but it will be the next thing on the wheel after I finish my Spinzilla stuff. And then I have the other coordinate, and I have several more things I'd like to get in the shop before the end of the year. So I have plenty of spinning to do. Like I said, I will be knitting socks this week for Socktober, and I will be working on the 2 pairs that I already showed you. I'll bring some more sock yarn next week and show you the next pair that I want to cast on. And a lovely viewer sent me a sock pattern this week, which I hope to get to as well. I already had my next pair of socks figured out. So I've got 3 pairs of socks on the needles, ready to knit a couple pairs of socks for my mini me this month, and we're gonna see how many socks I get through because I am on a sock kick. So that is all the news that's fit to print for today. Thank you all for joining me. If this was your first time, I know I was a little bit all over the place. It's not usually quite this discombobulated. If you were coming back to see me again, thank you so much for joining. I'm super excited about all of the things that are going to be coming up for the Corner of Knit and Tea in the next couple months. We will have some knit-alongs. Their Nanny Swaymo is coming up, so I will have to come up with a sweater. And Wool Diaries of the Wool Diaries podcast, Sally, she already called me out on a poncho is not a sweater. So I am rethinking my plan for Nanny Swaymo, and I am maybe going to buy something at Rhinebeck so that I could work on a sweater during Nanny Swaymo. So I'm a little bit all over the place, but it is fall and all the crafting time is here. Let's go. So thank you for joining me. I will stop here before I scare you all. I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.